This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Thursday, March 28th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
As the Baltimore recovery operation picks up steam, the Biden administration is focused on rebuilding and reopening. Sagar Meghani at the White House.
Another chapter in the ongoing saga surrounding Texas's controversial immigration law. I'm Clayton Neville.
Longtime senator and vice presidential nominee passes.
The Trump classified documents case is mired in delays. I'm Jennifer King.
On Wall Street, stocks open this morning after a rally and a fresh record high for the S&P 500 index. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Illinois stabbing spree leaves 4 dead. We'll have that story. And peace treaty between the House of Mouse and Florida's governor.
Lottery officials say there is one winning ticket in the huge jackpot. I'm Donna Woodard.
All ahead on America in the Morning. The recovery effort continues in Baltimore after that massive container ship struck the Francis Scott Key Bridge, plunging the span into the river below and blocking access to the Port of Baltimore. As Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports, the Biden administration is looking at rebuilding and reopening in Maryland's largest city, but warning of a long road ahead.
This is a unique circumstance. I do not know of a bridge that has been constructed to withstand a direct impact from a vessel of this size. This is no ordinary bridge. This is one of the cathedrals of American infrastructure. It has been part of the skyline of this region for longer than many of us have been alive.
As the Baltimore recovery operation picks up steam, the Biden administration is focused on rebuilding and reopening. The Key Bridge's loss is a major commuter and commercial problem.
We still don't fully know the condition of the portions of the bridge that are still standing or of infrastructure that is below the surface of the water. So rebuilding will not be quick or easy or cheap, but we will get it done.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says it will be reconstructed, but he's not putting a timeline on it.
The original bridge took 5 years to construct. That does not necessarily mean it will take 5 years to replace, but that tells you what went into that original structure going up. Again, we need to get a sense of the conditions of the parts that look okay to the naked eye, but we just don't know yet, especially in terms of their foundational infrastructure. So it is going to be some time.
As for reopening Baltimore's port, where no vessels are allowed in or out for now,
where commuters are going to need to depend on that 95 and 895 tunnel, and it's going to put pressure on them. As far as the port, again, too soon to venture an estimate.
Buttigieg was here at the White House to meet with President Biden alongside Coast Guard Vice Admiral Peter Gautier, who says crews are working to clear the bridge's remnants from the Patapsco River and move the vessel that rammed the bridge.
The Coast Guard highest priority now is restoring the waterway for shipping.
Sagar Meghani at the White House.
Texas legal woes continue in court surrounding its controversial immigration law. From the Lone Star State, here's correspondent Clayton Neville.
It's a law the U.S. Supreme Court returned to the lower courts. Legal experts believe Texas's SB-4 will eventually make it back to the high court. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals still blocking the law that lets Texas law enforcement arrest anyone suspected of crossing the southern border illegally.
We find ourselves on the precipice of the complete erosion and destruction of family values that we claim to hold.
Critics like Texas State Rep. Victoria Niave argue the law will lead to racial profiling.
Do we value incarcerating our aunties, our tias for taking our nieces to the park? Do we value punishing our cousins for going to school or to church or a shopping mall?
In its decision this week, the Fifth Circuit denied Texas's request to suspend a lower court order that sided with the Biden administration, which argues immigration is a federal issue and isn't up to the states. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, though, not backing down.
Even without SB-4, Texas has the legal authority to arrest people coming across the razor wire barriers on our border, and we will continue to use our arrest authority and arrest people coming across the border illegally.
The law currently on hold in Texas, and several big city police departments have voiced concerns about the bill, but Texas sheriffs back the law.
Texas sheriffs agree that the unsecured Texas border is in direct opposition to our primary responsibility to defend and maintain the the United States and Texas sovereignty.
The Fifth Circuit will take up the constitutionality of the law next week. I'm Clayton Neville.
Gag order be damned. That When America in the Morning continues after these messages. Rain engulfs a portion of the East Coast this morning. Welcome back to America in the Morning. A breakdown with AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
The latest frontal system in the eastern U.S. has stalled as an area of low pressure developed and continues northward today. This is going to continue to produce widespread rainfall, mainly along the coast from Florida to eastern Georgia, and then northward through the eastern portions of the Carolinas, Virginia, and Maryland, then continuing to eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey, southeast New York into New England. There will be a few thunderstorms in the southeast, some of which will continue through the day in southern Florida. This activity will be mainly in the morning in the south, but farther north, the storm will strengthen and there will continue to be rain through the day into tonight, and then colder air will eventually be enveloped into the system with rain mixing with and even changing to snow from Connecticut to Vermont into northern Maine. This can continue into the day Friday with several inches of snow possible, mainly in the higher elevations. To the west of the storm, we're looking at much more tranquil weather. We're seeing a few lingering snow showers across the northern Great Lakes. Most other areas east of the Rockies will be dry with sunshine, and there will be a much milder afternoon developing in the western plains states from South Dakota into Kansas and Texas. Highs will be in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, or about 5 to 10 degrees above the historical average. Areas in eastern North Dakota into Minnesota and Wisconsin will still remain chilly with highs in the 30s and 40s, and this will provide an opportunity for some wintry weather through North Dakota tonight with a mixture of freezing rain, sleet, and even snow. That's the weather across America. There'll be a little rain to start the day in Fresno, California, with some sun in the afternoon and a high of 65. It'll be a milder day in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, with plenty of sunshine and a high of 67. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember, follow us wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. A longtime former senator from Connecticut and the first Jewish vice presidential nominee of a major party has passed away. Joe Lieberman died from complications from a fall. He was a mainstream Democrat, but also a hawk where it came to foreign policy and the military, who later in his political career became more independent. In 1998, it was then Senator Lieberman who rocked his own party by rebuking the conduct of President Clinton during the Monica Lewinsky scandal. In 2000, Al Gore selected Lieberman to be his running mate in the election, later won by George W. Bush, a race that wound up in the hands of the U.S. Supreme Court over ballot issues in Florida. Remember hanging chads? Lieberman was also considered by Republican John McCain to be his running mate in 2008 before he chose Sarah Palin. Lieberman was 82. Despite a gag order in place, Donald Trump continues to rail on social media regarding his upcoming New York hush money trial. Meantime, there are mounting doubts that the former president's classified documents case will go to a jury before the year is out. With more on these legal wranglings, here's correspondent Jennifer King.
Judge Aileen Cannon has not set a firm trial date for the case deriving from boxes of sensitive documents the FBI recovered from Donald Trump's Palm Beach estate. Legal maneuvering means the trial's start may be pushed past the presidential election. Defense motions to dismiss the case and disclose the names of government witnesses are still unresolved. Legal experts say Judge Cannon may be treading carefully after her appointment of an independent arbiter to sift through the documents was overturned by the 11th Circuit Appeals Court. Last week, Cannon asked both sides to weigh in on proposed jury instructions that echoed a defense argument that Trump was entitled to retain the documents under the Presidential Records Act. Prosecutors want to move the case forward, citing public interest in a quick resolution and what they claim is overwhelming evidence, including surveillance video and testimony, that the former president hoarded classified material and obstructed justice. I'm Jennifer King.
Sports betting companies are rolling the dice on not seeing more federal regulation. That story and Wednesday's stock market performance after these messages. This is America in the Morning. The Port of Baltimore is one of the busiest on the East Coast, and not just for cars and other products that are expected to slow the supply chain following the container carrier that smashed into the Key Bridge, now blocking the port's entrance. Carnival Cruise Lines has a base of operations there, and they now warn their 2024 year earnings could take a $10 million hit. Carnival will now at least temporarily dock in Norfolk, Virginia. The Carnival ship Legend was heading back from the Bahamas when the Key Bridge crumbled, forcing the cruise line to bus passengers back from Virginia. There is no timetable as to when the Port of Baltimore will reopen. CNBC's Jessica Ettinger starts with a check of yesterday's market activity.
Wall Street opens this morning after a winning day for stocks. The Dow rallied up almost 500 points yesterday. The S&P 500 index snapped a three-day losing streak. It opens this morning at a record high.
Off the October low, call it a 30% plus rally for the overall index. Some level of breather for a period of time here into earnings season. Probably not unexpected, probably not unwarranted.
Solus Alternatives' Dan Greenhouse on CNBC. Amazon making a $2.7 billion bet on the AI startup Anthropic, Amazon's largest venture investment yet. Global ocean carriers have put U.S. companies on notice. With the Port of Baltimore closed from the bridge collapse, they're on the hook for urgent cargo pickup, some carriers using force majeure clauses. Once cargo is dropped at an alternate port, it's no longer their responsibility. Items being dropped include vehicles made overseas, wood paneling, flooring, IKEA furniture, and appliances.
Then there's the item of gambling companies trying to beat federal regulation.
Yeah, the largest U.S. sports books know there's a gambling problem out there. FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, Penn Entertainment, Fanatics, Hard Rock Digital, Bet365, they've all formed the Responsible Online Gaming Association. This, as teenagers have become more addicted to sports betting apps on their phones, public schools are holding meetings to help parents deal with their kids' gambling addictions.
Of course, we've seen Shohei Ohtani, the Raptors, Jonte Porter headlines this week. That has prompted a lot of finger pointing. This actually could be an inflection point where lawmakers crack down with restrictions that make it far tougher for these companies to turn a profit. I talked to New York Congressman Paul Tonka, and he said he's introducing national legislation because he's concerned about the pervasive advertising and the impact, especially on young people. But broadly, the casinos think they're all better off if they pull in the same direction, if they are trying to ward off severe rules that could impede their businesses. So this is one to watch.
CNBC's Contessa Brewer. On today's watch list, earnings from Walgreens. We get GDP, gross domestic product numbers. Pending home sales for last month are coming. We get the latest on consumer sentiment, and we find out how many people applied for unemployment benefits last week. FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried will be sentenced for fraud today. The bond market closes early. Stock and bond markets are closed tomorrow.
Thanks for that reminder. There's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, Disney, DeSantis disagreements dissolve after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Authorities in Illinois are calling it a senseless act of violence. A 22-year-old man is being accused of going on a stabbing spree, attacking multiple people in the city of Rockford. Police say 4 people were killed, including a 15-year-old girl and a mail carrier, and 5 others were injured before the man could be subdued. Rockford Police Chief Carla Redd.
Words can't even express my thoughts right now. This is a pretty painstaking event. My heart goes out to the families right now who are suffering a loss.
Police say a Good Samaritan who stopped to help one of the victims was also stabbed. Police did not disclose a motive for the stabbings, but plan to release more details later today. A years-long fight between the House of Mouse and Florida's governor appears to be coming to an end. It may not conclude with a fairy tale ending, but correspondent Julie Walker has this update.
The fight over how Walt Disney World is developed in the future following the takeover of the theme park resort's government by the Florida governor is over. Members of the Board of the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District approved the settlement agreement Wednesday, ending almost 2 years of litigation sparked by Governor Ron DeSantis' takeover of the district from Disney supporters following the company's opposition to Florida's so-called Don't Say Gay law. Governor DeSantis.
I'm glad that they were able to do that settlement.
And he sees a big future with Universal expanding.
I think that they have things that they probably have opportunities to do to expand their footprint.
Audio courtesy WFTV, I'm Julie Walker.
A person who bought a $2 Mega Millions ticket in a coastal New Jersey town now has over 1 billion reasons to be happy. Correspondent Donna Warder reports.
Lottery officials say there is one winning ticket in the huge jackpot. The winning numbers in Tuesday night's drawing: 7, 11, 22, 29, 38, and 4. The Mega Millions website says the winning ticket was sold in New Jersey. Until Tuesday night, no one had matched all 6 numbers since December 8th, meaning 30 straight drawings with no big winner. A cash payout for the winner would be $537.5 million. I'm Donna Warder.
America in the Morning for Thursday, March 28th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour. Heroic efforts responsible for lives saved before that ship crashed into the Baltimore Bridge.
Talks have restarted to bring a delegation of top Israeli officials to Washington. Ben Thomas, Washington.
New developments in the defamation case against Kari Lake. I'm Clayton Neville.
2 major sports teams were on the verge of moving to a new stadium, and not everyone is happy. I'm Katie Clark with details.
Another member of Congress says they're leaving early. I'm John Stolness in Washington.
Fast food firing spree. We'll tell you what led to it.
NCAA President Charlie Baker is urging lawmakers to ban betting on individual player performances. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
Back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. One area of the country under a deluge of severe weather this past week is now going to see things calm down. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy with the forecast.
We are looking at more tranquil weather through areas east of the Rockies, from the plains to the Great Lakes and into a good portion of the southeast. There'll be a few lingering snow showers across the northern Great Lakes. Most other areas will see some sunshine, and it'll be a much milder afternoon developing in the western plains states from western South Dakota through Kansas and Texas. Highs will be in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, or about 5 to 10 degrees above the historical average. Areas in eastern North Dakota into Minnesota and Wisconsin will still remain chilly with highs in the 30s and 40s. And this will provide an opportunity for some wintry weather through North Dakota tonight with a mixture of freezing rain, sleet, and even snow. The West will continue to have an active day weather-wise, with a broad area of low pressure continuing to build south and east. This is going to cause widespread showers through California into Nevada, Utah, and Idaho, with a steadier rain along the coast from Washington to Oregon. Dry through most of Southern California into Arizona and New Mexico. We'll have plenty of sunshine and afternoon temperatures in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, but it does look like rain will arrive this weekend. The latest runoff system in the eastern U.S. has stalled as an area of low pressure developed and continued northward today. This is going to continue to produce widespread rain, mainly along the coast from Florida to eastern Georgia, and then northward through the eastern portions of the Carolinas, Virginia, and Maryland, then continuing into eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, southeast New York, and into New England. There will also be a few thunderstorms in the southeast, some of which will continue through the day in southern Florida. And this activity will be mainly in the morning in the south, but farther north as the storm strengthens, there will be continuous rain for much of the day into tonight. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. As the recovery effort continues in Baltimore after that ship struck the Key Bridge, causing it to crumble into the Patapsco River's icy waters below, more is being learned about the heroic efforts by some on the ship and their warnings that led to the halt of vehicular traffic on the bridge. As correspondent Julie Walker reports, their efforts are being lauded for helping to save lives.
Despite efforts to get workers off Maryland's Key Bridge, heard here on Broadcastify.
There's a ship approaching that just lost their steering. So until you get that under control, we got to stop all traffic. I'm holding traffic now. I was dragging, but we stopped prior to the bridge, so I'll have all outer loop traffic stopped.
Before our cargo ship lost steering and hit it.
C-13 dispatch, the whole bridge just fell down. Start, whoever, everybody. The whole bridge just collapsed.
8 bridge workers went into the water. 2 survived. 6 are missing and presumed dead. Guatemala's consulate says 2 are from their country. Honduras says another is from theirs. And the consulate of Mexico says some are citizens of that country. Meanwhile, President Biden says the government will pick up the cost of rebuilding the bridge.
We still don't fully know the condition of the portions of the bridge that are still standing or of infrastructure that is below the surface of the water. So rebuilding will not be quick or easy or cheap, but we will get it done.
Governor Westmore praising the divers searching for those workers.
They are down there in darkness where they can literally see about a foot in front of them. They are trying to navigate mangled metal.
The governor was asked about criminal charges against the ship, which said it lost steering.
It's still too early in the investigation to rule anything in or out.
Meanwhile, the government will pay to rebuild the bridge, which not only affects the state.
We're the largest port in the country that does that. So this is not just impacting Maryland. This is impacting that farmer in Kentucky. It's impacting that auto dealer in Michigan. And so it is imperative that we get this bridge rebuilt. It's imperative that we get the Port of Baltimore back up and going.
Ship traffic at the Port of Baltimore suspended indefinitely.
This port is responsible for over 51 million tons of foreign cargo. That's the largest in the country.
I'm Julie Walker.
Israel launches a targeted assault against positions held by Hezbollah after a barrage of rockets were sent by the terror group into Lebanon and northern Israel, killing 1 person. The Associated Press reports 16 people were killed by the IDF retaliatory strike. The Israeli government also announced it was the recent UN resolution that led to Hamas rejecting an Israeli, Egyptian, and Qatari-mediated truce and partial hostage release. As Ben Thomas reports, a recently canceled meeting between U.S. and Israeli leaders is back on again regarding the latest violence in Gaza.
Now, we continue to share the goal of seeing Hamas defeated. So we'll discuss alternative approaches to target Hamas elements, and we must also plan for Israel's security after this conflict ends.
Talks have restarted to bring a delegation of top Israeli officials to Washington to discuss potential military operations in the southern Gaza city of Rafah.
The Prime Minister's office has agreed to reschedule the meeting dedicated to Rafah. So we're now working with them to find a convenient date that's obviously going to work for both sides.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
These talks will get us into a place where there is a plan, that we hear their side, they hear our side. I think the defense minister being here from Israel was really important. For 2 days, having those all critical conversations about Rafah, about military operations.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu canceled a visit planned for this week, angered that the U.S. had not vetoed a UN ceasefire resolution.
I thought the U.S. decision in the Security Council was very bad.
Venting to visiting U.S. lawmakers.
Victory is within reach. It's a few weeks away.
But he went on.
Now we are told, you can't do this. If you go into Rafah, you're going to have a humanitarian catastrophe. You're going to have, 30,000 civilian dead. That's not true. That is simply not true.
Downplaying the impact of a Rafah operation on Palestinian civilians.
People move down, they can move back up. They don't have to go into north of Wadi Gaza, but there's still 65% of the Gaza Strip left open. And people just move. They move with their tents.
No date set yet for that visit. Ben Thomas, Washington.
Arizona Senate candidate Kari Lake is sounding off following a development in the defamation case against her. Correspondent Clayton Neville has the latest.
Kari Lake accused election officials in Maricopa County of rigging the 2022 election. She lost to Democrat Katie Hobbs. She was sued for defamation by one of those election officials.
Elected government officials are punishing me with a frivolous lawsuit, and they're threatening to take everything I own.
This week, Lake pleaded no contest in the defamation case, and her lawyers asked that monetary damages be reviewed quickly. The Republican took to social media.
The political elite will do anything to hold on to power and stop outsiders like me who they can't control. Washington, D.C. operates on blackmail and bribes. Since they can't blackmail or bribe me, they've resorted to filing a punishing lawsuit to try to stop me and bleed me dry.
Democratic Arizona Congressman Ruben Gallegos challenging Lake in November for the U.S. Senate seat of retiring Senator Kristen Sinema. I'm Clayton Neville.
Democrat out in Congress, and Wizards and Capitals stay put. We'll have those stories and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. I'm John Trout. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. The proposed move by the NBA's Washington Wizards and hockey's Washington Capitals across the Potomac River to Virginia came to an abrupt end, and both teams will remain in the nation's capital for the foreseeable future thanks to a surprise mega deal. Katie Clark has the story.
After months of negotiations, two major sports teams have inked a deal for their home for the next 25 years, but not everyone is happy. The NHL's Washington Capitals and the NBA's Washington Wizards have been at the Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C. for the last 25 years. Their CEO, Ted Leonsis, had looked to possibly move the teams to Alexandria. The mayor had hoped would bring in new jobs and create billions in revenue. Alexandria's mayor, Justin Wilson, expresses his disappointment in Leonsis upping his contract in the current location.
We are disappointed that this proposal was not able to be thoughtfully considered on its merits by legislators, stakeholders, and ultimately now by our community, and instead got caught up in partisan warfare in Richmond. As a result, the city of Alexandria will no longer be considering the current proposal and will instead turn our focus to other efforts.
Washington, D.C. offered $515 million to Leonsis and his teams to keep them in the Capital One Arena until 2050. This deal will give them 200,000 more square feet to expand, in addition to upgrades. I'm Katie Clark.
Another departure from Congress as Democrat Congresswoman Annie Kuster announced she was leaving early, the latest member of the House not to finish out their term. John Stolnis has that story from Washington.
I always told you I won't be here forever and in Congress forever.
In a surprise announcement, the 67-year-old six-term Congresswoman says she will not seek re-election this November and will retire from Congress.
The House of Representatives is completely dysfunctional, and my highest and best use is to be out on the battlefield winning back the House.
In an interview with WHUR-TV, the New Hampshire Democrat says she wants to spend more time with her family.
I spent a lot of time with my family this winter. We did a lot of skiing and traveling, and I realized I have a life. And my husband, Brad, has been very patient. I want to spend time with my sons as they're heading into their married lives, and hopefully grandchildren on the way.
Kuster is the chair of the influential New Democrat coalition. She's considered a moderate in Congress and has been one of the key members of Congress in fashioning bipartisan legislation by working across the aisle. Kuster explains she thinks she can be more useful outside of Congress.
I really want to lean in on helping my colleagues and these fantastic candidates that we've recruited.
Kuster says she does plan to endorse one of the candidates who will be running to replace her. Kuster is the 49th member of Congress to either leave early or announce they are not running for re-election. Republican Mike Gallagher, who chairs the House Select Committee on China, announced last week he plans to leave on April 19th, leaving too little time for a special election, also meaning Republicans must leave one seat vacant until November. Republican Ken Buck left last Friday. The GOP now has just a one-vote majority, and it's reasonable to expect there could be more resignations over the coming weeks and months. John Stolnis, Washington.
New development in a case related to the freezing deaths of 2 teachers from India and their children found near the Minnesota border. Correspondent Jennifer King reports.
2 men, Harsh Kumar Patel and Stephen Shand, pled not guilty to charges of human smuggling during a brief teleconference with a judge in Duluth, Minnesota. Their case led to headlines. 4 members of a family from India who got separated from their group froze to death near the border in Manitoba in 2022. The victims were Jagdish Patel, his wife, 11-year-old daughter, and 3-year-old son. Shand was stopped by the U.S. Border Patrol in Minnesota with 2 people from India still in his van. Other survivors told officers they'd been walking for more than 11 hours in temperatures well below zero. Authorities say Patel, who went by the nickname Dirty Harry, was connected to a human trafficking group based in northwest India. He allegedly hired Shand to drive the Indian nationals from the border to the Chicago area, where they were expected to work for substandard wages at Indian restaurants while they paid off their smuggling debt. I'm Jennifer King.
The U.S. and U.K. have joined an indictment against a Wuhan-based tech company accused of being a front for a massive cybersecurity operation. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech News.
The United States and Britain have filed charges and imposed sanctions on a Chinese state-backed hacking group named APT-31. APT-31 is a collective of Chinese state-sponsored intelligence officers, contract hackers, and staff engaged in activities for malicious cyber operations, according to the U.S. Treasury Department. The hacking group, also known as Zirconium, has been working for a science and technology company in Wuhan. It has allegedly been linked to the Chinese Ministry of State Security and has been targeting U.S. and foreign politicians, U.S. citizens, White House and State Department staff, and their spouses were also on the list. The U.S. indictment alleges that the conspiracy involved over 10,000 malicious emails across multiple continents in a prolific global hacking operation backed by Beijing. A spokesperson for the Chinese embassy in London called the charges completely fabricated and malicious slanders. Leave a comment at allthetoptech.tech. I'm Chuck Palm.
With sports on America in the Morning, here's Robert Workman.
Baseball's opening day has arrived. All 30 teams were scheduled to play, but bad weather has already pushed the Brewers, Mets, and the Braves-Phillies contest to Friday. So the first game of the day will now be in Baltimore, the Orioles and the Angels. MLB owners Wednesday unanimously approved the sale of the Orioles to a group led by private equity billionaire David Rubenstein. NCAA basketball tournament resumes tonight with the regional semifinals in the East in Boston, a rematch of last year's national championship game, top seed Connecticut against 5 seed San Diego State, followed by Iowa State and Illinois. In Los Angeles, the West Regional opens with Arizona against Clemson and then top seed North Carolina versus Alabama. NIT quarterfinals last night, Seton Hall blew out UNLV and Utah walloped VCU. So Tuesday's semifinals in Indianapolis will have the Utes against Indiana State and the Pirates against Georgia. In the CBI tournament final in Daytona Beach, Seattle slashed High Point. The Redhawks closed out the game on an 11-0 run. In the CIT final, Norfolk State rallied from down 18 to defeat Purdue Fort Wayne. NBA, the Rockets got 37 from Jalen Green and edged the Thunder 132-126 in overtime for their 10th straight win.
We showed that we're a good team early on, and then we, dropped a little bit, but I think we're showing that we dogs, we competitors.
Houston remains a game behind Golden State for the last play-in spot in the West with 10 games to play. Warriors whipped the Magic, Suns sacked the Nuggets, Timberwolves topped the Pistons for win number 50 on the year. Clippers came back from down 15 to nip the Sixers, who expect to get Joel Embiid back from injury before the end of the regular season. That's Thursday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. Lawmakers scrutinize college sports betting and one giant leap for Star Trek. Just a couple of the stories we're covering next when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. There's been a rash of layoffs in California targeting fast food restaurants. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that some eateries are letting go of workers ahead of the new $20 per hour minimum wage law slated to take effect in April. Ahead of the mandatory wage increase, a number of businesses cut their delivery people, including the Southern California Pizza Company, which cut loose over 840 drivers in the greater Los Angeles area alone. Some franchisees are transferring their delivery services to third parties. The wage law applies to workers in fast food chains with 60 or more locations around the nation. The NCAA is encouraging lawmakers to put an end to a popular style of sports betting in college athletics. Correspondent Gethin Coolball reports.
NCAA President Charlie Baker is urging lawmakers in states with legal wagering on sporting events to ban betting on individual player performances. Prop bets allow gamblers to wager on statistics a player will accumulate during a game. Ohio, Vermont, and Maryland are among the states that have removed prop betting on college athletes. The American Gaming Association estimates $2.7 billion will be bet on this year's NCAA men's and women's basketball tournaments through legal sports books. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
They traveled the galaxy, and now the iconic Star Trek brand is preparing for the future. Kevin Carr beams aboard with that story.
This week, Variety's cover story looks at how the Star Trek franchise plans to bring new viewers where no one has gone before. Launched in 1966, Star Trek became an overnight sensation, but due to sagging ratings, it was canceled after only 3 seasons. The adventure lived on in feature films and spin-offs through the early 2000s. Now, like the Madonna of sci-fi television, Star Trek is reinventing itself again on Paramount+.
It is not life as we know or understand it.
Star Trek Picard wrapped up its finale season last year, and Star Trek Discovery debuts its 5th and final season next week.
Last dance. I shall follow your lead.
Other streaming series include Strange New Worlds, which follows the Enterprise before James Kirk became captain. Lower Decks is a continuing comedic animated series, and the kids' animated Prodigy has been resurrected from cancellation to find a new home on Netflix. Some of these new shows have taken big creative swings, including crossover episodes and even a musical episode featuring K-pop, with the K meaning Klingons.
Why you only calling us when you got your dramas? One of these days we'll repay you, we'll slay you.
So what's next for Star Trek on streaming? Well, there's the Section 31 TV movie starring Oscar winner Michelle Yeoh, described as Mission Impossible in space, coming next year. Also in 2025, Starfleet Academy, a teen series set 1,000 years in the future, will make its debut. I'm Kevin Carr.
And these are the voyages of America in the Morning. Our show today for Thursday, March 28th, 2024, produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.